Marketing Podcast is brought to you by Esther of IPA Group, bringing premier online promotion to your business.
And Melanie of Stomp Social Media Training, who empowers business owners to manage social media and marketing for themselves.
And welcome back to another episode of the Monday Morning Marketing Podcast. Today we're joined by Carol Gaffney, brand strategist at Gaffney Studios, and we're talking about brand archetypes. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you. And yes, I can't wait to answer everything about brand archetypes and how we use that to design our brand photo shoots. And it's a topic that I really love. So I can't wait to talk about that.
Brilliant. So the one question that most people will ask, and we know we are going to ask it here anyway, what is a brand archetype?
Yeah, brand archetypes. Was designed by, the archetype theory was designed by Carl Jung. I don't know if you're familiar with Carl Jung. And he divided our personalities in several archetypes, and then in 2004 there was an author called Carol Pearson. She brought that theory into brands, into marketing. So then she said, 12 archetypes is enough for brand archetypes. You don't need more than 12. So there, it's the magician, the caregiver, the lover, the explorer, the ruler. We also call the royal and rebel. Anyways, 12 in total. And they are most an easy way to describe them, that it's like the universal symbolic that really resonates across cultures. So they are very deep into the subconscious mind of our collective unconscious. So when you think about, for example, when you think about a caregiver, you think about a mother, right? You think about someone in the kitchen most of the time, taking care of other people, using their hands all the time. And so when we think about those symbols to represent a caregiver, it's a universal, it's not just one symbol. It's like lots of different codes, visual codes, and can be words, can be sound, can be music that symbolize their personality. And yeah, so to be very clear about what archetype is, they are symbols, elements, and signs. They are part of our collective unconscious, and that represent a specific personality.
So, obviously, you're a very visual person, Carol. What you do is extremely visual. For people who are like services, which would be normally deemed less visual, would they still have a brand archetype that they create?
Yes, definitely. Because, for example, if you are a career coach, right? It's a service that you provide. And then you have the sage archetype. The sage archetype is all about studying. It's all about being very deep into their how can I say, their studies, their research, and it's very intellectual personality. So we can bring that type of personality into the way they represent themselves. So this sage archetype that is a career coach, for example, they can bring those words that represent and the sage archetype. They can bring in their symbols, the way they present themselves. They can put pictures of books, libraries. The color as well plays a huge part, like color that represents most of the time the colors that you can see in a library, or can be a deep green, or can be terracotta. So yeah, the way they show off, the way they dress, because okay, she what she delivers is a service, but she will post her photos. She will have a website that people can see, can have those signals. They can be bombarded with those signals into their subconscious mind. And if they are looking for a career coach, they are very sage, they are very intellectual, they are very intelligent, they will hire her. If they are looking for a career coach, they are more of a caregiver archetype, they are not going to hire her. They're going to hire someone else. And that saves that career coach time, because they are not going to be dealing with clients. They are looking for something else.
So, how do you represent all of this, or even the stage before that? How do you figure out what archetype you are?
Yeah,
Is there a
we
questionnaire? Is there a, checkbox activity? Is it a personal thing where I would turn up and say, yeah, no, I'm this one? And Melanie might turn around and go, no, you're not. What way do you figure out what archetype people are?
So we always say that we don't choose an archetype. We figure out, as exactly as you said, we identify the archetype, because it's all part of our personality. So in our case, when the client books us to design a brand photo shoot, we have a questionnaire. It's like 20 questions where they go very deep into their sense, their personality. We always tell them to really answer as their self, their own essence, not who they want to be, not someone that people expect them to be, or their niche or their sector or the industry expect them to be. No, who they really are, because any archetype can sell in any niche, in any industry. And then we do that questionnaire. I use the same questionnaire when I work with when I mentor personal brands as well. So it's very precise. It's very rare that someone give, because sometimes when I meet a person, I start analyzing them. So I'm like, this person is the sage archetype, or this person is the caregiver archetype. And 99% of the time, when the results of the questionnaire comes back, I'm like, yes, I was right. So in very rare occasions, when the answers are all over the place, I ask the client, how did you answer the questionnaire? Were you focused, or no, I was not focused. I was, my neighbor rang the bell. She was asking me this and that.
Sat
So
on
I
the
was,
toilet, that sort of thing.
yeah. Yeah, that happens. So then when the answer is all over the place, I know they didn't focus. And I always ask them to focus, to put like in a music that they love, get their favorite drink, and really and lock themselves in a room, tell everybody that they really focus, because they really need to go very deep into their essence to understand who they are.
Mm.
So then, because it's not, I always like to give that example. I'm not a jester archetype. I'm not funny. So imagine if I have a brand that I put the jester archetype as the main archetype for the brand. That brand is not gonna last for a month, or even
Mm.
even a week, because I'm not funny. So I cannot pretend I'm funny if I'm not. So it's very important to respect your own personality and to identify your personality.
So I've got to ask you.
I knew she was going to ask this one.
You met us a while back at an event. This is how today is possible. And of course, we had a little bit of time to talk before today. Now, you know that myself and Esther, we have our own separate brands, and we've brought together, our collective knowledge and had a go at doing a podcast, basically. And we now have this new brand. So, how would your brand archetypes bring together the true essence of who myself and Esther are, and reflect that in a brand new brand? Um, would we then be two separate archetypes, or would we be collectively one? What? How does that work?
Most of the time, when you go into a partnership, when you go into a marriage or whatever, it's very, very likely that you have set of values. They're similar, they overlap.
All right.
Each archetype has their set of values. So for example, the set of values that we share, it's more related to the explorer archetype, myself and Phil. So he has explorer archetype as a secondary, and I have the explorer archetype as well as a secondary archetype. So whenever we work with brands that have more than one that has more than one owner, they always, I never worked with a brand that has more than one owner. The main archetypes don't overlap. They normally, the main archetypes, they do overlap. And then we work with that one that overlaps, we work as the main archetype. And then we understand what is the motivation of the brand to pick the secondary archetype of one of the two to bring the secondary archetype. It's very rare for us to get an archetype that doesn't belong to the triage of the main three archetypes of each owner to bring the motivation, because most of the time, like for example, we worked with a travel agency, and the two ladies that own the travel agency, they both have the explorer archetype really on the top. So we worked with the explorer archetype, and one of them, she had the love archetype. So because they sell luxurious and travel, and we did bring the love archetype as a secondary, as a motivation to bring that touch of luxury into the brand, you know. So
Mm.
in your answering your question, we would understand which are your main archetypes for each of you.
Mhm.
Most likely it's going to overlap. We take that main archetype as the main one, and we understand the motivation behind the brand to bring the secondary archetype to attract the right clients, because that's what brand archetype does. They really help you to attract the right clients. They are looking for what you offer, the way you offer.
So you said there that there's three, everybody has three archetypes. Is that correct? So there's like a main one, a secondary one, and a tertiary one? Or would they ever sort of have two or three that are competing for top slot?
We all have the 12 archetypes within us, and we score them. Like for example, the Citan archetype, when I do my score for this archetypes, the Citan archetype goes very low, the Jess archetype goes very low, the rebel maybe in the middle, you know. I'm a kind of a rebel. But when it comes to lover, to explorer, and the magician, goes really really high. It scores really really high. So those the three archetypes at the moment, they're a part of my own personality. It's very, I don't think it's gonna change. What can happen is, for example, archetypes, they are similar. For example, the ruler archetype and the love archetype. Some people, they once they come into a stage in their lives, the ruler can overcome can overcome the love archetype. But most of the time, we have those three archetypes. They are very part of our nature. It's very part of our sense. Because it's part of your essence, we can change our behavior, we can change our knowledge, we can change a lot of different things in our lives as we grow, as we develop. But our essence is very rare for us to change. I'll give an example. Like when I do when I do the archetype test, and I do that very often because it's part of what I offer, so I have to do my inner work all the time. And I always remember the first time I went to Disney World, I was absolutely amazed. I was like, that's my place, you know? And because I remember traveling back home, I was crying. I was like, oh my God, I don't want that dream I don't want to wake up from that dream. So the magician archetype is really strong in my triage. And I know that when I look back, I can see that from my childhood.
Okay. Well, before I go on to what you were covering just there, I wanted to ask, we've been doing podcasts over the last few months with people who are more introverted. And obviously, I do understand that you want to reflect the brand, but you want to attract the right type of people as well. So even when you're building an understanding of who the archetype is of the person that you're trying to support, creating the brand strategy for, the brand archetype, sorry, how do you create a brand archetype that will attract the audience that they're looking for? Are you trying to sort of coerce them into being something they're not, or how do you do that?
Yeah, it's very it's not sustainable to be someone who you are not.
Mm.
It's not sustainable. So that's the reason why we use archetype, to attract the ideal clients. They are looking for they are looking for what you offer
Mm.
with your personality.
So
Going back to
even introverted.
even introverted, someone that is very we have some clients that are very introverted, and they for example, they don't like recording videos, so they say, okay, I want to have a bank of photos that I can just keep posting and keep putting myself out there without having to record a video, without having to to show up in a video, or to I don't like my voice and so on. So we can do that, no problem. And when it comes to archetype, the archetype is going to help you in a way that it's going to, for example, if the person is a citizen archetype. A citizen archetype is all about sustainability, is all about being responsible in relation to the community, in relation to understanding that we all are equal and we all have the same rights.
Mm.
So if someone, a customer, is looking for, let's say, a marketing specialist, and that aligns with their value, because at the end of the day, we buy by identification or by aspiration. We either
Yeah.
buy because we feel aligned to that personality, we feel we think we understand we are similar, or
Mm.
I want to be like that person, right?
Yeah.
So anyone with can be an introvert or an extrovert, doesn't matter. If they have the right archetype, they're going to attract the ideal client. The dream clients, I call dream clients because those are the clients that don't give you a headache, because they know what they are buying, right,
Yeah.
right? They know what they are going into.
Yeah.
If you are, for example, I am, as part of a magician archetype, I have straight talk as one of my core values. And when the client buys from me, then I always try to talk about that in social media, and when I meet people, like, what is the straight talk? Is being honest, but putting empathy first. So people, when they buy from me, they're not going to be, oh my god, like, they're not going to be scared, and they're not going to be surprised. They're not going to look for a caregiver. I'm not a caregiver at all. I can help you, okay, but I'm not going to be carrying you and putting, like, it's not my style. So when I am a mentor, for example, when I advertise myself as a brand mentor, I look for mentees that understand that I'm not going to carry them, I'm not going to do things for them. I guide them, but they need to do their work.
Mm.
So that's how brand archetype helps me, regardless if I'm introvert or not. It's going to help me to attract my ideal clients. So down the line, I'm not going to have a problem with that client, because they know what they they bought. Understand?
Yeah, and there's somebody for everybody. So there's always somebody looking for your what you sell or what you offer, whether they, like you say, whether that because they align with what you're offering or because they're aspiring. It's not like you're going to all of a sudden, after going through these archetypes and discovering who or which one you are, which one is most relatable to you, it's not as if you're going to then attract zero customers. It's more likely that you will attract even more customers, right?
Yeah,
Right?
you're going to attract your tribe. You're going to
Yeah.
attract your tribe, and that's what we all want.
Okay. You thought I was going to ask earlier on, but I'm going to ask now. So, what do you think our brand archetype is as the Monday Morning Marketing Podcast, Carol?
Which is your brand archetype?
Yep.
Don't put her on the spot now, Melanie. That's just mean.
I don't like answering that question, because imagine if you send signals to me that is not part of your brand archetype, and when you do the test, if you ever work together and you do the test, it's something else. And then if I say that you are one archetype, you will start to behave like that archetype, and can be very
Ah.
it can be a stereotype, and that devalues your brand. If you start
Mm.
behaving as a stereotype, that devalues your brand a lot. So I have my idea. I have my idea of your brand archetype very clear, but I don't like answering that question, because that can I can that can be wrong. The signals that
Yeah.
you are sending to me, you might I don't know if you are sending because it's part of your brand or it's part of personality, So I'm always careful about answering that without having the questionnaire.
Good answer,
Good
Carol.
answer.
Well done. So you've mentioned this before, and part of Gaffney Studios is brand photography. So when you are taking pictures of people, then like you said, do you, if they're already an established brand, if they've already got their logo and their color scheme and everything like that, but their archetype comes back as something completely different, would you encourage them then to go and change all of that? Or how do you go about, I know you said you're a straight talker, but how do you go about broaching that topic? Or would you just say, well, that's fine because that's your logo and that's, been long standing for, and everybody knows that's your logo. How about in the brand photos, we take them with these elements and include your colors, but these other elements so that it's more in line with your archetype. How do you do that for an established brand?
Yeah, that happened very recently, actually. A brand that is very established came as the ruler and the explorer archetype,
All
which is
right.
really part of her personality. And when you look at her brand, the colors were not aligned, the logo was not aligned, was representing maybe an innocent archetype or something, a caregiver archetype, but not ruler or explorer. So she said, she I didn't even have to tell her. She said, I think it's time for me to think about the other part of my brand, like logo, color scheme, and so on. So she's reviewing that as well. But what we do normally after the photo shoot, and most of our clients, they get like a 1 hour coaching session. We call the follow-up call after the photo shoot. So we help them, like, okay, we went through all this together. It normally takes 4 to 6 weeks to design a photo shoot. We go very deep into their brand, we go very deep into their
Gosh.
personality. So it's 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
So, and then after that, they have the bank of photos to represent their personality, to represent their brand archetype. And then we say, why not? Like if you post this photo and you put the, like, we have a bank of words that we give to them as well. So if like keywords, for example. So if you have photos that represents the ruler archetype, and you are using keywords on your text, you post a photo, right, as a post in
Mm-hmm.
social media, and then you write the text, and the keywords represents the caregiver personality. That's gonna, it's gonna mix, it's not gonna match, it's gonna confuse customers, don't buy. So it's not gonna it's not gonna represent your own archetype. So we always, it's a 1 hour and a half call that explain to them how to leverage their brand archetype in all the areas of their marketing, not only on the photos, because it's very important for them to understand how to leverage their brand archetype in different areas. So, and most of the time they realize that they need to update their logo and the brand scheme, the brand palette, the color palette, and so on, early stage. But sometimes we talk about that after the on the follow-up call.
Wow.
This sounds like a really large package that you're offering here. And it's great that you don't just kind of do all this work and then just leave them to it. So it's this follow-up call is, I suppose, like a level of accountability as well, which I'm all for personally. So one thing you did mention there, which I found quite interesting, is you don't expect people to just sort of sit on those images and those words. This is something that you can come back to, and get up to date photos and maybe update your archetype as well. So, how often is it needed? Is it something once a year, once every couple of years, or does it depend like a lot of things?
You mean to review the archetype or
Yeah,
to do the photo shoot?
a bit of both,
Both.
really.
Yeah, to review the archetype, I'd say once a year, but it's very it's something that you need to do with a brand archetype expert. It's not something that you can do on your own, because you need someone. Even myself, I'm a brand archetype expert, but I have a brand archetype mentor who mentors me, and we are going through that at the moment. We are reviewing my archetype at the moment because I'm rebranding. So I have that with me. I have that mentor with me to help me to review my archetype, to understand which one is gonna come first now for the rebranding, how we are gonna do the dance between the three of them. You know, the
Mm.
fourth, should you bring the fourth as well, or just leave the fourth as fourth and leave outside? So it's something that I would review once a year, because we change, we learn, we we grow as a business, as a person. So it's good to review once a year.
Mhm.
Brand photo shoot definitely once a year, because we change a lot, and it's really important to have to have a photo shoot once a year to like just a version of yourself, a current version of yourself. So many people that have their headshot like from 10 years ago, from 15 years ago, and they don't look like that anymore. So it is
Yeah.
important to
Guilty.
have it is important to have my recommendation is to have once a year, definitely.
Okay. So, how do people get in touch with you and get into your onto your radar in terms of connecting with you for brand archetypes and then for the photo shoots? How do they contact you, Carol?
It's Carol Gaffney. On LinkedIn, we have a website, gaffneystudio.com, and our Instagram is gaffneystudio.com. Yeah, everywhere is Gaffney Studio, and then you can also find as Carol Gaffney on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, and you're based in Ireland, but can anybody outside of Ireland like connect with you and get maybe not the photo shoot unless you're willing to travel, um, get at least help with the brand archetype?
Definitely, definitely. I have clients all over the world for the mentorship, but I'm also, we both are explorers as our secondary archetype. As you can see, we I have pictures of a place that I love behind me. So we love traveling. So if someone wants a brand photo shoot in very strategic brand photo shoot, not a one size fits all brand photo shoot, but very strategic, very bespoke brand photo shoot, and they want us to travel. That's our love language. So we love traveling, and we're gonna be really happy to travel.
Brilliant.
As long as somebody else pays for it, you'll travel anywhere.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Carol, for coming on and for explaining all about brand archetypes. I feel much clearer about what they are.
Hmm.
And now I'm going to have to delve into what one I am. And I'm going to message you privately to get that information out of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol, and thanks for joining us today, guys. We will be back next week with another Monday Morning Marketing podcast. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See, I told you, Esther.
What, that I'm the jester? Yes, I know.
No, although that was pretty funny, actually. No, about the photo.
Yeah. Who
It took,
has time for that?
it took 4 flipping years to get video out of you. How long is it going to take for the photo?
Maybe another 4.
Yeah, so many people they just don't